Welcome to Black Belt Beauty Radio, a podcast fueled by a passion to support your journey in developing your most beautiful and optimal performance in life. Each episode is driven with the intention to elevate your mind. When we elevate our mind, we elevate our life. So get ready. It's time to rise. We're doing it. So I'm so excited because I don't even remember the last time I've seen you in real life, but I fucking love that you and I go way back. So I'm in my second career and you were one of the most prolific women I fucking know. And it's so admirable. And there's so much to dive into in a small window of time. But first, before we, get into all that, I'm just really grateful to be here with you. And especially, having that backstory with you, and really being a witnesser. So for those who are not familiar yet, a lot of my audience knows I had a career as a professional makeup artist, and that's how me and you, Jen, met. And I remember on set, witnessing your authenticity, witnessing your work ethic. And we had some fucking long shoot days.
Did we ever? Oh my God. And by the way, you were an amazing makeup artist. So you don't do any of that anymore, huh?
No, it's been years. Yeah. No, I have this whole thing around skill versus purpose careers. And so that was I have so much respect and love for that part of my career life. It was so important for me for so many reasons, but that was really me honing in on a skill, actually many skills, because to climb to the top 1% like I did, it's not just makeup skills, it's business skills, right? But what I've been doing now as a writer, speaker, and there's coaching in my business too, this is purpose, because I'm just showing up and I get to be me. And that's totally the best part, right? So you, again, your tenacity back then, your work ethic, and I'm so excited because you have a new book coming out and I'm not all the way through it, but I mean this with all my heart. I already know that this is going to be one of the most gifted books that I can give, especially to women that I coach, because it's so bigger, better, bolder, which is centered around boldness. And we'll dive into all of that. But I do really feel so much resonance with the whole premise of the book that to really achieve great things in life, whatever great is for anybody, you have to have bold energy. You have to take bold action. So I'm so excited to dive deep into that with you, because I really do believe that individuals that can really, including myself, the more that we can fortify this skill that is boldness, the more that we're going to be able to really just cultivate more fulfillment in life, I believe.
That's such a beautiful way of saying that. And I have to say too, I am so happy to be here with you because I always adored you. You did the best makeup, which, I'm very upset that you don't do it anymore. But the funny thing is, we met on set for Weight Watchers, the workout videos. Remember that? Yes. Oh my God, how many years ago was that? That must have been 16, 17 years ago. A long time.
That's crazy. It's close to 2 decades. Yeah, and I love that we have that also. There's so many things in common, like the fitness background, and even how, you really integrate mind and body are one thing, and so much of what so many of the skills and the attributes even that you fortified, you developed, and have really helped to develop your whole career and everything that you're doing really stems also from your love and your experience within fitness.
Totally true. 100%. And what's so interesting? This is a great, it's interesting because both of us had different quote unquote careers back then. Mm-hmm. But what we did is take skills that were transferable and we can use them in any other parts of our lives, professionally and personally, where I just feel like everything is an evolution, right? You may start someplace, and this is why I tell people my book and what my big message, I guess, of my whole philosophy is basically based around this, is that don't count yourself out because you are this person right now, because you have the ability to become whoever you want. And the reality is life isn't about, in my opinion, isn't about finding yourself. It's about creating yourself. And so in that creation, there is lots of different evolutions within that until you find where you really want to be. But you need to connect the dots, and if you build certain skills, you can transfer them into any area. And so I was doing fitness videos, you were doing makeup, and look at us now, like 10, 15, 20 years later, that like served us really well in our life. We may not be doing that day to day as our skill set, right? But I'm not doing a squat or a lunge on a videotape, and you're not doing eyeshadow, but nevertheless, what it was is like, you need to have people skills. You need to have the ability to kind of deal with people, and having the ability to kind of read a room and know how to act and how to act different personality types and all these other things where it served you well. And so that's why I feel that it's really sad, because a lot of times people get very pigeonholed, like you have to be because you were at one point of your life a makeup artist. I'm just using you as an example. That means that you have to then forever always be a makeup artist, which is so it's so not true. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's not, you can be good at more than one things, and you can morph into whatever you want. Like for me, to this day, because I was so hardcore in like fitness in a lot of different aspects of it, people see me still as a fitness person and don't really see what goes on behind, like peel back the layers a couple times and be like, oh, actually, yeah, she's good in that area. But because of that, she's also good in this area. And she then maybe she could run a business and sell a business and get the, but people can get very myopic. And that's where a lot of times what other people's perception of you ends up happening is that because someone sees you in one way, you end up seeing yourself that way. And that's when you're going to break that cycle and be like, that's your problem, really.
Yeah.
I have lots of other things, right?
No, it's so true. I love all that. And honestly, it's one of the things I really love about you is that, first of all, to evolve the way that you have, I mean, because you've done so many things, and I'm not going to. There's like a small window of time right now to connect on this, but so I can't go through your whole resume because it's actually massive. But to be able to do what you have done and what you continue to do, I feel first and foremost, you have to have a really strong ability to listen to your authentic self. Because so my kind of framework around this is your authentic self is your heart. It's what you really want to say yes to, what you really want to say no to, what you really feel like you need to ask for, like all of this stuff, or go this way or go that way, right? So, which is also why it's like, why did you not get pigeonholed? Because when you felt like it was time to move or evolve or try the new thing or whatever, like you fucking went. You did the thing, right? I
did get pigeonholed. I still get pigeonholed. When I wrote this book and try to sell this book, most people, except a couple, were like, "Well, isn't she a fitness person? What is she? How does she have? What's her business in writing a book on being bold?" Because it's people's very myopic way of thinking and mindset, where they have a very fixed way of thinking about things. And therefore, they did pigeonhole me. My whole life, I've always been underestimated, and I've always been pigeonholed. But the irony of all of it is I always get pigeonholed into whatever that area was I was doing until I have to just prove them wrong, which is before I was in the fitness business, right? I was in the music world. I was a head of marketing for a record label. And when I decided to leave the music world, because it was a time when everything was becoming very different, it was like iTunes, and it was a very different business back then. I left, and in the interim of me trying to figure out what's next, I became a personal trainer just so I can make some money. But to be honest with you, I'm Canadian. So when I got a job offer to come to the States to be in LA. And because I was on a working visa, I had no ways of making money if I wasn't with that record label. So I had to think quick. I'm like, okay, if I want to stay in this country, how can I make some quick money under the table? Let me become a personal trainer. And that's the way my brain thought. So I can maybe have some clients, make some cash, and then I can kind of, as I go, figure out what my next move is, right? Well, in that whole process, I actually fell in love with the whole idea of fitness and health and making that part of my real career, even though I only always saw it as a hobby. And, that took me down a whole different trajectory of like being in the fitness business. But before that, I had no business being in the fitness business. I was like I said, I was in the music world. And by the way, before I was in the music world, I was in the sports world. I worked for the Toronto Raptors. So I had a lot of very, very different, basically pillars of industry. And so when I became the fitness thing, I really leaned in hard. And then I had my books in the fitness world, and I had my deals with Weight Watchers, and I had a weight loss show, and I had a weight loss shoe, and I did all these things. And when I kind of was starting to become very entrepreneurial in the fitness space with creating my own fitness shoe, and then my fitness app that got acquired, funnily enough, by Weight Watchers, which is but a different time in Weight Watchers than when you and I knew each other. People were like, well, aren't you a fitness person? I'm like, well, no, I am a fitness person, but I'm also a business person. If I was able to create an app, which is a tech company, right? Yeah. And then sell that tech company to a massive company like Weight Watchers, can't that kind of break me out of that space of just doing a lunge and a squat and a plank? Yeah. But it still wasn't like that for some people. Yeah. And so that has always been the story. And so you can't let other people's small-mindedness hold you back. And so my advice, and what I say all the time, is like, you got to just go and like act and do whatever inspires you, and you can figure out the rest later. Yeah. And you learn as you go. You don't have to be an expert. I wasn't an expert in a tech company, but what I was an expert in at that time, because I made myself an expert, was fitness stuff. I knew the fitness stuff. So because I really liked that, I figured out other ways to make things around me that I wasn't strong at, other people, to bring in other people to create a business. But my point by saying, if you want something bad enough, you have the desire, you have to be bold, and you got to take a chance on yourself. And you have to just not worry about having to have everything worked out and understood. And you could become an expert if you put the time and energy into it.
Yeah, I love that. And I really love how you frame boldness as a skill, because somebody could be listening to this and be like, well, that sounds like a gift that you have, because it seems to come natural to you. But clearly you're saying, well, no, I just took one step and then took the next, right? But every step was me kind of flexing the bold muscle, because it takes courage. And, I think the relationship between boldness and courage really, it's like in a partnership, would you say?
100% true. So you're right. And I think that boldness is not something that you have to be born with. I think boldness is a skill like anything else, and you can get better at it the more you practice at it. Was I born maybe a little bit more bold than, Jane or John? Maybe, but there's been other people who are born much more bold than me. But what makes the difference is whoever works at that the most gets to be the boldest and continues to be the boldest, because, it's not like you can just, you work at it for a finite period of time and then it's over and now you're bold. Like going to the gym, and you and I have this in common too. If you want to be strong, it's about consistency, right? You can't just work out for like 2 months and think you're going to be strong for the rest of your life, right? Because eventually you stop working out, your muscles will atrophy and you'll become weak, right? Same thing with boldness. It's like you can practice it, but you need to be consistent and do it all the time with little things, little bold moves to make sure that muscle is still flexing and still working. And that is really the crux of all of this, about the book, about everything, is that you can work your bold, you can do little bold moves, little things daily that accumulates and compounds over time. that when you can ask and get comfortable with asking for little things, it gives you that comfort level to ask for the bigger things. But you can't ask for the big things if you are uncomfortable with the small things. So what I did in the book is I gave people very actionable ways that they can integrate in their lives, ways that they can work on being bold. So it doesn't have to be something that seems so overwhelming.
Yeah. No, you really feel to the reader, I feel like you're my boldness coach in the book. It's so awesome because it's honestly, it can be very intimidating. What do you mean? I got to be bold and like, I got to do this. I got to ask for help. I got to ask for what I want. Like what's crazy about that is that that's actually, one of the things I love so much, I have to just say this in the book, is like the good enough mindset. You point this out, the good enough mindset. So many people are living from this good enough mindset that you tease out in the book. And it is the result of not taking bold action and not doing what you're saying. Like, I also love how you talk about, it's essentially like the power of practice. I always say like consistency is a magic pill. It's not the, how much, how fast, like, no. And we know this so well. It's the crossover, the carryover from fitness is just, it's the best, because you see it so easily in this space, where it's like, my quote is like, inches make the mile. Like, are you kidding? Just keep putting the fucking reps in, rep, because if you don't do that, then it's just what you just said. The atrophy takes place. And I feel like connecting the dot between atrophy, not flexing the bold muscle, and then the good enough mindset, people just settle, Yeah, please.
No, 100%. Everything you said. I mean, listen, you're just saying my song. I think that's 100% accurate, right? I think a couple things here. I think most people acquiesce to what's in front of them. They take what's good enough because we don't have the courage to actually ask for whatever it is we want most in life, right? And that is stemmed from a lot of self-doubt. We think that we're not good enough. We think we're not talented enough. We think we're not pretty enough. We're not athletic enough. And the list goes on. It's not smart enough, right? The list goes on and on and on. So instead of chasing it, we just kind of take what's available. And then we live our lives in this way of kind of being status quo, in this like place of status quo. Well, it's fine. How's your marriage? It's okay. How's your job? It's okay. Like everything is okay. Everything's okay and fine. There's never like, oh, it's really good or I'm really happy. And I think a lot of that is because we never took the ownership on us to make things happen for us. Like, we end up a lot of times people don't really go after the real job they want, right? They kind of go to school if they go to school. And then they apply for whatever they see available. And then they get that job and then they work there for, let's say, 20 years, right? And then they're never really satiated or fulfilled. And one day can very easily turn into the next because life happens, right? In life, it's very easy to get caught in ruts because it's busy. We get kids, we have responsibilities. And then one time you look around and 1 year turned into 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and you're like, where did all this time go?
Yeah.
So, I urge people to not allow that to happen to them because it so easily happens. It happens to me too, unless I am very cognizant. And so like, you have to take that agency within you. And what I mean by that is stop overthinking because we are our worst nightmares and our worst enemies. We stop ourselves from starting because we overthink all the things that are wrong with us, as opposed to just being like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to overthink that. I'm just going to start. I'm going to go into action and take one little step. And then lo and behold, that one step turns into 2 steps, 3 steps. And then guess what? You've now walked, a half a mile, right? Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But we get so scared and so feared of failure that we don't even want to even make that step.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the part that you were saying about the good enough, when really it's really a question of just like going after it and starting by by just doing that one attempt.
It's so true. One of the things I love too that you talk about is that, we could be too smart for our own good. And it really correlates with what you just said about like the overthinking. But, usually when we think about someone who's really smart, it's something that we see as very advantageous, right? But I do agree with you so deeply that actually being really smart can fire up the brain in a way where you're just like, you're in like freeze mode, right? You're just overthinking.
I actually think being really smart is a detriment a lot of times, because it does stop you in the start. It makes you overthink. It makes you overanalyze. You can have analysis paralysis because you're thinking of all the things that can go wrong. Yeah. But when you're bold, you think about all the things that can go right and you act. Now, you can be sometimes impulsive when you're bold, but if you can measure that, the secret sauce, in my opinion, for success is being bold versus being brilliant. I mean, the world does favor the bold, not the brilliant. They say that, whoever those they are, because it's true. I mean, the reality is, if I really look back and think about all the people that have really achieved enormous success, it's because they've been bold. They started, they acted, and they figured it out as they went, versus having all the spreadsheets and the data and all the analytics and all the different stuff. Like, please, I mean, that will just bog you down. I mean, I'm like average smart, if that. And I've done okay, you know what I mean? Because I just started, I just tried. And the difference a lot between someone who wins and loses is someone who actually just stays the path and just is like persistent and just doesn't give up. Right?
Yes, girl.
Right? Like, losing doesn't make you a loser, but quitting makes you a quitter.
It's so true.
Right? And so I live by that motto, like, I'm not a quitter and I'm not a loser only because I just kept on going.
And that is like, to me, my kind of framework, like, you are so on your team. And I love that. And I'm not saying you can't have moments where maybe you're being hard on yourself or, any of that energy.
A lot of that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, let me ask you, because look, I think we can both agree, I would like you to affirm this actually, that being bold or having strong, bold skill levels does not make you immune to fear. Like feeling fear. Yeah.
No, of course not. I've got fear I've got fear right now.
Tell me about that, because again, to really help people who are like, but how do I get out of the fear part of this? Because, okay, this sounds great, but what the fuck? Like, I don't know how to move past the fear, and everybody's fear is going to be different, but I would just love to hear how some of your tactics.
First of all, I'm fearful all the time, but I don't let it stop me. That's the difference. I mean, I don't love public speaking. A lot of the times when people are in the space that we're in, it requires a lot of like talking and public speaking and more public speaking. And I don't like it. It makes me very uncomfortable. I'm very insecure about it. I know what I know, and I like, and I have my ideas and my philosophies, but I don't claim to be the biggest expert on anything. I'm just telling people what works for me and what I've seen work for a lot of other people in kind of like from looking down and from my own experiences. But because in this business, like I said, you have to do a lot of this stuff. I don't like it, but instead of kind of like avoiding it, I go through it because I can't avoid it. So, being fearful is okay. You could be scared. Scared is normal. Yeah. I think the people who say they're not scared, there's something probably like not right, because I think it's human nature to have that. But it's about how and what you're gonna do to deal with it. You can choose to sit in a ball and cower about it, or you can choose to take ownership and agency of yourself and be like, okay, I don't like this. I'm super scared about it. I have a lot of insecurity, but I'm going to just do it anyway. And guess what happens? You do it anyway. And the thoughts in your head of what could happen are way worse than what really happened.
Yeah.
Nothing is ever as bad as you think it's going to be. That is the first thing. And the more you do something, because I've been having to do a lot of public speaking, especially now with promoting the book and doing all these things, that now, like, you know, it's uncomfortable at the beginning, but then you get more comfortable and it gets easier and it gets better because you're doing it so much more. And part of my whole process, and what I talk a lot about in the book, is like how to get comfortable with that feeling, how to get comfortable with failure, how to get comfortable with asking for what you want, how to get into a place where you have the courage to do tomorrow what you don't feel comfortable doing today. And this is not rocket science, but it's very simple. And a lot of it has to do with practice. You got to practice and you got to do it over and over and over again to get over that fear. And that's how you build resilience. And that's how you build character. When you do things you don't want to do, but you do it anyway.
Fuck you, girl. Oh my God, you are firing me up. My heart is, because I so stand with you in everything you're saying. And it's so crazy. Your TED Talk, was that like 3 years ago? 3 years ago?
2.5. I think now maybe, yeah.
Which is so fucking good. And I remember when I first took that talk and I was like, when you're talking like presented the boldness, I'm like, oh my God, she nailed it. Exactly. And it's so, again, this is something I really genuinely love about you is like, listen, you are a very accomplished woman. Again, very prolific. You've done incredible things. Your career capital is so rich and you still, you know, you're charging forward. There's so much more coming from you, but it's so amazing to witness your most authentic self express. Like, listen, here's the deal. By the way, TED Talk, like over 4.3 million views, I believe.
No, it's actually I think it's at 5 million now.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah.
Crazy.
Okay.
I don't know.
It's so good. Yeah. And it's like, and you're over here and you're like, and by the way, podcast fucking crushing. And you're like, by the way, I'm not comfortable. I don't really like public speaking, which I understand. I understand you so deeply. But you still do it. And here's the thing, you don't just do it, but this is the thing that's so important is that you show up with everything you got. Like whatever that fucking is in the moment, like you're giving it all. And I think that that's also a skill, you know, that you just practice. And so what I think is so valuable for everybody listening or watching right now is that, you know, so many people could be making excuses about why it's not possible for them. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I mean, you literally called yourself a fucking professional failure, which is like the biggest.
Yeah, I am a professional failure. I say all the time that I got a master's at falling and failing, but I got a PhD in, you know, getting myself back up and trying again. And that's basically what it is.
It's incredible, but at the same time, and I'm saying it for you, and I bet like you are so well established, successful on many different levels. I mean, your family life, like it's not just you as an entrepreneur. It's, you know, and again, I go way back, so I can literally, I know the personality, like the through line, like it's still you are you. Everybody and people who know me know that I am fucking me. So I am saying this to you, and I think, again, the most valuable piece here is that you're really giving everyone permission. It's an invitation. Like, listen, you can make excuses, but I'm here to tell you that most of what you think or you see as a limitation is actually just an excuse. Compassionate, but it's an excuse. So, yeah.
I believe, listen, I'm not one of these people, right? You know, on social media, a lot of people who throw a lot of molasses on you, you know what I mean? Like you are enough and you're great and you're wonderful and all these other things, which is good and true. However, that's not my way. And I don't believe that we grow when that is the way we think. My thing is, I always want to see how much further I can really grow and push myself to get to really self-actualize, right? Because if you see yourself as good enough all the time and I don't need to change, then where's the growth in that? Mm-hmm. And that's not my style, right? Like to me, that's not how I feel. I feel like, we have to be our own CEO of our life. And we have to take that ownership, and we have the ability to become what we want and also become or do nothing with it, right? The onus is on you, right? And I think that there's something to be said for work ethic and working hard, right? That you need to, nothing ever comes easy, right? Like, I'm not saying even with this, like, if you want to be bold, or if you want to get that, whatever that goal is, just do this. No, the truth of the matter is, a lot of times it doesn't work out. A lot of times you don't reach that goal for lots of reasons. There's a lot of variables to why people succeed beyond, right? Yeah. But what I will say, and what I do promise you, and what I promise people all the time, that if I promise you, if you go down the path of action and practice and working hard and picking, a direction, not necessarily a destination, but a direction, and you stay in motion, you may not get to that goal necessarily, but another opportunity will present itself that you never knew existed. And that's the point, that you sitting on your couch watching Netflix, guess what's going to happen? No opportunity. You're not going to find an opportunity over there. But where you will find opportunity is if you are open to opportunities, you say yes when you want to say no, and you go out there and try to do things. You may fail and it may not work out, but my best successes always came from those failures, even though at the moment I didn't know that was going to happen. Like, at that moment, you feel like, you feel like it's a failure. But if you can reframe how you see things in your head and be like, you know what, like, this was I failed at this right now, but if maybe that just wasn't my path. But if I brush myself off and get right back up and keep going, guess what? Another opportunity will happen. Yeah. So you have to kind of not let little things or failures stop you from achieving what your real path was supposed to be.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love the distinction between direction and destination. I think that's so huge. And I also love how, you can look at yourself and go, oh, okay, here's a little kink in my armor, but that doesn't necessarily, you don't take ownership to it like, well, this is who I am. It's just noticing, hey, this is my Achilles heel, or hey, this is the kink in the armor. Let me work on this. Let me get past this. Because I think more often than not, what happens is either they don't want to face the kink in the armor or an area that they need to learn and grow, get better at, or they take ownership and it becomes part of their identity. And that I think is so powerful, is that you're not attaching your identity to the areas that could be seen as like weaknesses or, vulnerabilities that you want to strengthen and grow. It's huge.
100%. And I think there's a couple things there. My identity is not wrapped up in a failure or a success, because both of them are fleeting and couldn't have happened, right? Like, a lot of times, like, things just lined up well because I was so persistent that I did succeed. And sometimes I was so persistent, but it still didn't work out. And I failed at it, but I got that other success down the road. So I don't attach my identity to that. But this is where it becomes something that I think we should touch on, which is all about perception, right? Like, how you perceive something is the reality of it, right? We can perceive things in a negative way, which is then where that rabbit hole of negativity and that's when you're in trouble. My little girl's in here. Yes, we are. Okay, thank you. You're okay. So cute. I love her. Okay. She's like, sorry.
Love it.
Sorry. So that's what I'm saying. Like, see, this is not perfect because my little girl just walked in, but things don't have to be perfect, right? Like, perfection is overrated. And by the way, to that, I want to say something that you said earlier about my TED Talk. My TED Talk was the most fragmented thing in the world. Like, I had someone at the beginning of that TED Talk someone brought a crying baby, like screaming and crying in the audience. So it like distorted the audio, and they asked me to like start again. So I was like 2 minutes in, and they're like, excuse me, can you start again? And then I had to, and it had the courage I had to work up to go and do the TED Talk because I hate public speaking, like I told you, right? Mm-hmm. Was so hard that my mouth was so dry. I had so much anxiety that I had to stop again and be like, can I get some water? Because I had like cotton mouth from the fact that I was like so uncomfortably anxious. And then I was so nervous about like not saying something that I had like notes all over my arm and on my hand, because you're not allowed to bring like notes up with you. You can't bring anything. So I was like, oh my God, what if I lose my train of thought? So I put these little notes around on me. To this point, why I'm bringing this up is it was hardly perfect. I got off the stage and I said to my husband, oh my God, I was such a disaster, blah, blah, blah. Like probably no one will watch it. Thank God. You know what I mean? and then it like went viral. And I think a big part of why is that it wasn't perfect. And people appreciate that. People appreciate when things aren't perfect because life isn't perfect. Only Instagram on filters are perfect, right? Because it's not real. It's a filter. Right. Life is messy. A lot of life is about, falling and failing and getting back up and maybe not getting back up and lots of other craziness. Yeah. And if you can kind of be and put yourself in a place of reframe and perception and realize that you are just like, you're like everyone else. There's no one that's better than you. Just because someone looks better or looks more successful or looks are deceiving. We're all trying to get by the best we can. Mm-hmm. And so I always take it to the point, well, if that can happen for that person, why can't that happen for me? Why not me? What is the worst that can happen if I put myself up there? What is the worst that can happen if I fail? And, people I think appreciate because it's familiar, right? Because we totally. All are doing, we're all doing the same, trying to like do something. So if we can encourage someone to kind of get out of their own way, I think it's really that's why the TED Talk did okay. But I think that's really important,
Yeah, no, one reason I think, the whole subject was so powerful, but I do agree with you. The relatability factor of just, witnessing like, oh shit, look at that. Her mouth is dry because she's nervous. Like, I'm thinking like that, that, by the way, that's a North Star for me, TED Talk, and I'll tell you straight up. I mean, I public speak in podcasts, but it's very different on stage. And I'm already getting prepared for it because I know that's the direction. That's where I'm taking, a part of my career life. But I also know that that's not a comfortable situation for me. So just from me to you, like real life, like, me witnessing you in that moment, like having those, the nervous system response, but still just delivering, like that's what I'm saying, like showing up with your best. And then talk goes viral. Like this is inspiring versus like, the cookie cutter trying to be perfect and everything that's not relatable.
It's not who I am, I mean, there are people who are way more put together than I am and probably can fake it well. I'm not that way. Like we talked earlier, you said something about authenticity. I think authenticity is super important and people should want to live their most authentic life because that's when they're the most satisfied, right? If you're living some other life that you think that is what you're supposed to do, no one's happy in that way. Mm-hmm. And that's why a part of this whole thing is having a lot of self-awareness and taking a look within yourself and be like, what is important to me? What do I like to do? How do I like to spend time? What kind of person do I want to spend my time with? Mm-hmm. And kind of be kind of like take notes, mental notes, and map it out, and then be deliberate on what your choices are, and then have that ability to then take that being deliberate and then go after that exact thing. And the other thing is do it one at a time, because the problem is, if you focus on too many things at once, nothing ever happens well. You do have to have some strategy with this, right? Like you can't try to be great at everything, but the idea is to have a rich life, which is really, like really robust. It's not about professional and only about personal, about money, or about having a boat, because that's not what I'm trying to say. The rich life is not those things.
Yeah.
The rich life is having relationships that are satisfying and fulfilling, a career, a job that you really like to go to, and like it doesn't feel like you're working.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel like a grind, even though you can be grinding all the time.
Yeah.
Experiences that are fulfilling. It's kind of like a whole holistic thing, right? Because if you only have one bucket of your life that's fulfilling, let's say your job or your this or whatever it might be, and all these other buckets are empty, it's still an imbalance.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no harmony there.
There's no harmony there.
I love that so much. And I love that you talk about authenticity and self-awareness. Those are two of my core subjects, because they really are the greatest agent to, well, self-awareness for growth, for change, for development, for self-actualization. And I am with you that I believe you can never, true fulfillment is the result of you living your authentic self, because it's logical. Like if you're not actually operating from your most authentic self, then you're probably not dealing with authentic people or opportunities that are really serving you. You know, it's a fucking slippery slope. So I love.
But yeah, because one thing connects to another thing. Like if you're being authentic in one thing, all those other things, it's like a line.
Yeah.
None of those things are going to be authentic. Like you're saying, that the people you meet and then the opportunities that come from those people, and it just kind of just keeps on going, as opposed to, you know, just having that, taking that moment or taking that time to really figure it out, and then not be concerned about what other people want for you or the pressures you have. Because a lot of us live in these places of going down certain paths because that was kind of part of what we were expected to do from our cultures, our families, our whatever what is.
Exactly. You have to be bold to stand against that and stay in your heart, right? Like,
yeah,
be bold.
Right. Or if you have been doing it and you don't know why you feel like this, like dissatisfaction, maybe it's a good time to see where that dissatisfaction is, because it's never too late, right? Like, I don't think that just because you did it for so many years, that doesn't mean that you have to continue doing it. If you can stop and pivot and change.
Yeah, absolutely. Do the introspective work, learn your core values, your core self, like all the things we just talked about, and then move from that beat. I so agree. I have to tap into this part with you to kind of, I think it's important, and I know you talk about this in the book, but bold habits. And I love that you, again, because fitness and you know the power of health, and you know, it's interesting how, you know, people have really done a good job of separating mind and body, when really your biology supports your psychology, and your, you know, they work together, right? So when we want to talk about, you know, emotional resilience, like nervous system, like you're afraid, but you still got to take bold action. What are some of the bold habits that, you know, and you don't have to lay it because you have a whole book and I want everybody to read it, but what are some of your like top bold habits that support?
Okay, well, because I was going to say, because you did mention something earlier about fitness, and we didn't talk about it. We just kind of passed on to the next thing. But, you know, the fitness piece to me is so important, not because of the physicality of it, like, oh, I want a great ass, or I want to have a six pack. I mean, to me, that was like, it's obviously like when you're younger and all that stuff, that could be the reason why people start doing it.
Right.
But the byproduct, what you get from fitness, taking fitness somewhat seriously, the byproduct is so much more vast and important than that. And what you learn, like I've gotten my best life skills from the fitness space. And, you know, which is interesting. Why? Because a lot of times people overlook fitness people. They're like, oh, they're dumb, or they're just, no, they're meatheads. Yeah. The reality is, most fitness becomes a microcosm for the world, in my opinion. You learn goal setting, you learn discipline, you learn structure. You also learn about confidence. You see yourself, you create a goal, you conquer that goal, and you move on to the next thing. So you also learn patience. You got to like wait to see results. There's so many things that you get from the fitness space that really, like that is like those core fundamental values and skill set that I got has helped me tenfold in life everywhere else. So because of that, I know the importance and the value that fitness brings to any of this stuff for true success. I literally have an entire podcast based around habits and hustle, right? The name of the podcast, because people's healthy habits that they do is why they are keep them on point to be the most productive. Now, for me, people who, if you exercise daily, what it does for your cognitive abilities, never mind the physicality, like I said earlier, that's nice and fine. If you're like I said, if that's what gets you in the door, great. But now when I work out, it's because what it does for my mood, my cognitive abilities, my being alert and on point. And then not to mention energy begets energy. So all of these skill sets that I got from fitness really, really helped me with all these other things in my life down the road. So fitness to me is one of these healthy habits that are necessary in being bold or anything you want to accomplish. Because also when you do it, I also think if you do it first thing in the morning or you do it in the morning, it sets your day off, right? It sets the tone for the rest of the day, for the rest of the week, right? You feel a sense of accomplishment. You feel a sense of self-confidence, that you did something, that you did something for yourself, that you feel good. Also, the amount of endorphins. Yes. So all of these things are really important. So when you go after whatever it is you want, or ask for what you want, or do all those things, that you're in a good mindset, that you're in a good space, right? Because it's very easy to like we're saying, talk yourself out of doing something when you feel blah.
Yeah.
So when you do it from a place of okay, you know what, here I am. I just worked out. I feel good. I'm proud of myself because I did something hard and I didn't want to do it, but here I am. And it's let's go. And the rest of the day follows.
I so agree with you. I think, again, I love that you're really bringing in the whole biology and physiology component here, because the sad truth is that there's so much fucking low hanging fruit for people to feel better. And in the feeling better, it really connects with everything that we've been talking about in this conversation. It's you want to do big, bold things. Well, get your biology and your physiology to support you, your brain. I mean, this is why I love neuroscience, neurobiology, your dopamine, your, these endorphins, like you just said, it's going to help you. But if you feel sluggish, if you're full, just sitting all the time and, toxins, environmental, it's going to be hard to motivate, to feel that energy, to have you take the bold action, right?
Yeah, it's also about just setting the table, setting yourself up for success. Yeah. Putting yourself in a situation to actually go after whatever it is and to succeed. And you have to set the table. You're going to set yourself up. And so if you're taking these proper steps and getting yourself into a good ritual and a good routine, where you're kind of now primed, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's much easier to conquer when you kind of feel that you've done those things. It's very ritualistic that way. Now, I'm not saying people need to be an Olympian, right? Or to they need to be a gold medalist. No, I'm just saying do something for you every day where you're moving your body, you're sweating, and you're changing that physiology that we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Your neuroplasticity changes with that as well, right?
Yes.
The more physically strong we feel, the more mentally strong we feel. They work so hand in hand. And sometimes people don't make that connection. They think, it's only one. It's physicality. Absolutely not. There is such a, when I started to really take fitness seriously when I was young and really got into that habit, it really did change my brain chemistry.
Yeah.
It really helped me really get to a place where I felt like I was unstoppable, where I could ask for what I want, that I could be bold. It gave me that extra confidence, that extra courage. So kind of line yourself up, make the stack or the deck, line it up for you to win.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. On the mention of winning. I love all that. I want to know what's the, 2023, new year. What's one big, bold accomplishment that you're seeking to win, to achieve, to actualize?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. So I'm so mired right now with the book, right? But I think that what I'd like to do, I have a couple of things that I'm looking to do in the business, like entrepreneurially, right? In the entrepreneur space. And I want to be able to focus on them. So I think, but I also want to spend time with my kids because they're growing and like kids grow so fast. I think that right now it would be nice to have some balance, to be able to learn a little bit more about how to, because I think it's very difficult, like I was saying.
Yeah.
I'd like to find some balance with my entrepreneurial drive and my family. I think to me, sometimes everything's always out of whack, right? You're heavy on one has to suffer. I would be happy if I could just find a little bit more balance. That would be one. That's my honest answer.
Love it.
But it's a work in progress.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it's a lot to juggle and it's really real. I know, some of my best friends, we talked about, it's like I witnessed, them as mothers and then them as these leading women in the entrepreneurial space, just charging forward. And I know that it's never an easy thing to do to harmonize the whole thing. So I think it's such an honorable goal to be focused on. So I love it.
It's hard to do. And I think people who aren't honest about it, we're like, oh yeah, you can have it all.
Yeah.
No, you can't. You can have it all. Maybe at different times of life, you can have it all. But at the same time, something always has to give, because the flowers, whatever it is, wherever you put your energy, that's what grows, like wherever you water, wherever the grass is watered is where the flowers grow.
Yeah.
And you can't water everything. There's only so much time in a day. And that's why it's really important, like I say, to be deliberate. Pick something that you want, one thing you want, go after it, and maybe another and then after that happens and other opportunities happen, then you can focus on something else. But what I really believe is you need to kind of have a somewhat of an outline of how you want your life to be. And that is my point. And then you can fill it in as you go.
Yeah. As
opposed to letting someone else or letting life circumstances just give it to you. And then you have to just you're a very passive player in this thing we call life.
I love it. That's a mic drop. So I'm going to end there.
Okay.
So fucking good. Okay. God, I adore you. I appreciate you. I mean, for so many reasons, honestly, it's so refreshing, honestly, to listen to someone who is really established and accomplished, is so real about your process, your, everything. You're authentic. To me, that's number one core value of mine. So it's going to hit my heart, in a very powerful way. But thank you so much for sharing everything that you shared, for doing because you're fucking contributing. I mean, your podcast is epic. Everything will be in the show notes. This book, I promise, I'm not just saying this to be nice. This is going to be one of the greatest gifted books because, again, it's number one, I really believe in everything. I stand with you on everything that you share in this book. And I believe that if individuals were operating from more of their authentic self and then taking more bold action, that they would be living a more self-actualized life where they're thriving from within and out, which to me is real success. So this is a gift. Thank you.
I agree. I second that.
Perfect. Okay. So Instagram, where do people go to connect with you?
The Real Jen Cohen on Instagram. They can, right? The Real Jen Cohen. They can go on my website. I think TikTok, all the usual places that people get found.
Okay. All right, girl. Well, we're going to have to do this again. And I'm going to make
absolutely.
I'll see you in LA soon.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode, you guys. If you loved it, please share it on your social. Throw it up on your Instagram stories and tag me. I'm at Black Belt Beauty. I am also at Roxy Look, RoxyLook. I love connecting with you guys. This is a conversation that I want to just continue growing with you guys. So if you feel inspired to hit me up, do so in that space. I always enjoy hearing from you. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can do so by rating it and reviewing it via iTunes. It's such supportive help, you guys. It really helps the visibility of this podcast. So I appreciate and thank you in advance for doing that. And on that note, you guys, I'm signing off with all my love and always looking forward to catching you on the next.